You've connected to Cisco Unplugged.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cisco Unplugged. I'm Dan Klamert, your host, and this week in episode 52, we're going to be talking and discussing Catalyst Center best practices. So I would like to welcome back to the show Salil.
Good. I was thinking about this, Dan. This is kind of like like on the game shows where you have phone a friend, right? It's like anytime I have trouble, if it was wireless, I used to phone Salil. If it was Catalyst Center, it was Kevin, right? So it's like this is the
Exactly.
friend session.
Yeah. So I'd like to welcome for the first time to the show too. You mentioned Kevin Chang. He's
Yeah.
a technical lead on the Catalyst Center team. Welcome, Kevin. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. And our viewers, like you said, Al, may recognize Salil from, he's a principal engineer. He's been on some of the best practices for back to school sessions we've done for wireless back in the past. So thanks for everything in the past there and for taking the time today, Salil, to be on the show. I appreciate it. Yeah, me too. Yeah, and hopefully our customers are glad that we're doing it too. So before we get started, real quick, I just want to go through a few reminders. So we are using Slido for questions. So if you do have questions, we usually get some good questions. You can see the URLs on the screen, or you can go to the URL, I should say the QR codes on the screen, or the URL below the video on our YouTube channel. And again, as a reminder, we are broadcasting live on YouTube right now. We also will have this up there on YouTube for your viewing at a later point. And I think I don't know if we mentioned this, this is going to be a part one of a part two. So teaser to stay tuned. We are going to have a part two where we go even deeper on actually episode 53. So the next episode right away, we'll be having a deeper dive here into some of these best practices. So as a reminder, the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Get Unplugged. Go out there, like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you are notified when we do go live and you don't miss that second part two episode here in 2 weeks from today. So with that, I think we're good to go here. Let's get unplugged. So Salil, let's talk Catalyst Center best practices.
So we will talk about the quality journey what Catalyst Center has gone through for the past maybe a year or two. We'll talk about what are the software code recommendations today that we are recommending, and we'll go a little bit about best practices in our session one, but then we plan to continue that in session two. Cisco support extension, how it can benefit you and also save some time. And the escalation process, typically if you run into problems, maybe you're hard down from a severity 1 or a severity 2, how do you reach, get access to Cisco personnel? With that, the quality journey. So one of the things that in the last, probably I would say like couple of years we have done is we've kind of slowed down from 3 releases per year to 1 recommended release per year with an intense focus on quality. So with that, what it ended up was having 3-phased approach. Like phase 1, we came out with 2337, which is basically hardened wireless automation. This was also the first Catalyst Center recommended release. Then we came up with phase 2 with enhanced hardening from a 9800 provisioning perspective. There's also added a lot of upgrade robustness to the system, so people could upgrade without having to run into problems. Then there was a strong acceleration in backporting some of the bugs or issues that we found internally into a customer deployed release. So in summary, we kind of spent about almost 900 internally found defects and about 250 CFDs to backport into this release, with a lot of emphasis on regression and feature testing. With phase 3, what we started doing and focusing was more on per device, brown field configuration, wireless resilience, and then a lot of app functionalities, serviceability, Then in addition, we also improved on resiliency for the upgrades. There's a lot of emphasis done on regression and automation. And this is where our phase 3 kind of is today. We continue to do beyond phase 3, and we will share with you as we implement those changes in our systems. Now, this is the most important question that gets to us is, hey, when should I upgrade and which release do I upgrade? What we have observed as we released 2377 and we marked recommended release late in December, we started seeing a massive adoption of this release. And with that massive adoption in a very short time frame, we were able to actually translate, like today, about 36 to 37% is on 237 today. And this is our primary driver for customers to upgrade from, whether it is 233X or 235X. We want all our customers to go to this 237X release. So far, we haven't seen any alarming bug encounters that we would flag this as not recommended release, but we're getting good positive feedback from most customers who have upgraded there. Now, coming to software code recommendations, we basically are recommending today 2377 on the Catalyst Center. On the wireless LAN controllers, you all know from our previous sessions, we've done 17.12.4. Obviously, keep an eye on those APSPs and smooths. With the switches, again, it's 17.12.4 and ICE, which is 3.3 patch 4. We do anticipate to come up with a global smooth with some of the known fixes in the next probably 2 or 3 weeks on the Catalyst Center. If you need additional details on compatibility metrics and EOL software releases, I've given you the hyperlinks there as well. This is another slide that I put out for let's say you're planning the entire rest of the year for an upgrade perspective from an iOS XE perspective or a Catalyst Center perspective. We are expecting to come up with 17.12.5 sometime next week or two. We are also expecting to come 17.15.3 in March, and then in July 17.15.4 for Wi-Fi 7 and the newer controllers that came out a year back. From a Catalyst Center perspective, we do expect to come 2379 in Feb, March, and in July 23710. So I expect that people who are on 2377 to also naturally transition to 2379 and 23710. Obviously, we are looking at if there is a need that we need to be on 23710, but these are the releases that we have out today. Now, the other question that comes to us most of the time when we discuss with the customers is like, how do you actually mark a recommended release? And when it's marked as a recommended release, do I actually go ahead and upgrade? So one of the things that we have learned probably over a year and a half is we have to give that confidence to the field that when we mark something as recommended release, it is recommended release, right? So we came up with this strict criteria in terms of when we meet a certain deployment size, which is, let's say, 2,000 Catalyst Centers have upgraded. There are no new CFDs with more than 5 TAC cases. There are no new S1s, and pretty much high critical impacting bugs in CCO code is not there. Then we move them to our recommended release. And this should give us confidence where customers can upgrade. Obviously, if you do need help, our TAC organization is there to help you guys. You can always log a message or SR case, and they'll be happy to walk you through if there's any concerns with the upgrades. With that, what we will do is I will pass on to Kevin. He'll walk you through the best practices that we felt are important today, especially around upgrades and few things that we get most questions asked. And Kevin, here you go.
And
Thanks, Salil.
actually, Salil, before we turn it over to Kevin, sorry, I just wanted to remind everyone we do have Slido up. If you do have questions, go in there and you can submit the questions via Slido. I have fielded a couple questions via the YouTube chat as well, so that's another option for you. But thanks, Kevin. Over to you.
Thanks, Salil. So one of the main things that we're going to try to cover is the DN1 to DN3 migration. This is kind of coming to top of mind because a lot of the DN1s, the customers have it, they're approaching end of life, and we need to move on to the DN3s. So here you can see that, so some of the main points is that where the DN3s will come pre-installed with 237. The minimum release is 2375, and they will come pre-installed now with 2377. On this page, we've had listed for you both the datasheet for the DN3 as well as the end of sale, end of life of the DN1. I believe that will be coming in at the end of March. Next slide, please. So here are the most asked questions that we get when it comes to, hey, I have a DN1, what do I do with a DN3? What do I need to look at? What do I need to prepare for? So as of today, the major release that they're going to come on is 2377. And then the next question is, hey, I have a DN2, and also, do I need to replace all of them with DN3s? The answer is in 2379, which is a release that will be coming out in the next couple of weeks to a month. You can mix them, meaning you can have some of the 3-node cluster members be DN2, and some be DN3. We're not isolating you to only having one or the other in 2379 and beyond. Then some customers ask, hey, I have a 1-node, can I go to a 3-node? Yes, you can. And then for customers that have noticed that, hey, I don't need as much power and I want to go down, you can, but only with the XL models. If you have an XL 3-node cluster, you must move from one DN2 to another DN3 3-node XL cluster. This is due to how we have structured the pods and containers within them. Now, for DR, this gets a little more complicated because we do support DN2 and DN3s in DR, but the entire cluster must be of one particular release, meaning if your active site is all DN2, and then your standby can be all DN3, or your entire 3-node cluster of your active is DN3, and then your standby can be entire 3-node cluster of only DN2s. We don't support the mixed mode in the DR deployments. If you want to review how to do the migration and any further questions you may have, please see the guide that we have linked below on this page.
Let me back up just 1 second on that slide, just because I want to make sure, because there's a lot of information here. This is packed with lots of stuff. So just to be clear, on the second bullet where we can mix the mixed clustering, the DN2, DN3, this is just the model DN2, DN3. We still need to be sure that if it's an XL, we're clustering with an XL. We can't cluster across different sizes of appliances, right? This is just across the different models of appliances, correct?
That is correct. The reason for that is because not only do we have different hardware, meaning CPU and memory allocations for each of the containers, but the actual hard disks are different sizes. When you start mixing that way, you actually can cause a lot of system performance issues. So that's why if some of the, for example, in assurance, if some of your hard disks start going bad and you don't get on that, you'll start noticing quite severe degradation in your assurance. So that's why you have to keep within the same size scale, even if it's between DN2 and DN3.
Gotcha. And then same thing applies if you're doing DR's disaster recovery, right? So if you're doing the disaster recovery, same thing applies there, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Before we move on,
Thanks.
too, I just want to call out one of the questions from Michael in the chat around, I don't know what we can share around DN2. They have two DN2 clusters. They're concerned about the roadmap for end of sale on those. I'm not sure what we can share there.
We'll have to take that back and kind of review.
There is no plans at the moment, Dan. I think DN2, DN3 should be continued. Yeah, at least not right now, but if it will come up, then we will definitely come out.
I think I've heard some of the same rumors. At this point, I would say they're just rumors.
At this point, yeah, okay. Don't worry about it at this point. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Excellent question. Thanks, Al.
Yeah.
So now that we've talked about kind of the hardware upgrade here, now we're also going to talk software upgrades. A lot of customers have had issues or just concerns in general difficulty with completing upgrades now. We've done a lot of hardening, but there's still some items that we can go through before you do an upgrade as the user, to kind of make sure that you can have a seamless upgrade as possible. I'm pretty sure many of you are now familiar with the OR report. This report is updated fairly regularly from TAC, containing new issues or new concerns. And what you do is you can go on the web for the how-to, go to how-to to kind of pull the latest one and see how to best utilize it. It'll run through that, and it'll give you an output of kind of what your system health is at this point in time, as well as its readiness for the upgrade. If you find any issues in there or concerns that you need resolved or wish brought up, please open the TAC case, and the engineers will get with you. This is a new tool that we've added called system validation. It does a quick check for just high-level system health, and it'll return to you whether it's good or critical. And in a lot of those, you can kind of open up a TAC case and review it if it's something that needs to be addressed now, or just, hey, is this something that you just have the state of your machine. For example, we label critical for those who are approaching the top end of what your system supports from a datasheet perspective. For example, if you have support 100,000 clients, but you are approaching 90,000 clients, it'll flag as a critical warning. Hey, you might want to start taking a look at this, because at any point in time, you could go over, and at that point in time, you could start having some problems. Then the next one is kind of a generic disk verification. Obviously, you have to download the code. These codes are fairly large. Just do a general health check. Hey, am I running out of space? The view certificates now, this one is a little more in depth, where due to how we secure the communication, we do a lot of certificate-based work. Now, if the certificates go bad or we have a problem, that's not, we will go and we will assess that. So what we do is, as a part of the upgrade, if it's within 100 days, if the certificates will age out within 100 days, what we do is we try to renew the certificate as part of the upgrade, try to prevent any further problems down the road. So just kind of run a quick check, run that command, see what certificates are in and out, and then try to refresh those certificates ahead of time. That way you won't run into problems when you perform the upgrade itself.
Hey, Kevin, we have a question on the chat as far as these commands. Are they available in a restricted maglev shell?
They are. We made sure that these commands are available. So the sudo maglev certificate info command can be run in the maglev shell, as well as the refresh.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. And one, just to add on top of this, right? I mean, certificate renewal should happen automatically. But in the event it doesn't happen, it's just another check for us, for you to look at it, so just wanted to make sure.
Right.
Thank you.
And of course, this is just, and the next one is obviously a very just standard type of housekeeping. Make sure you have backups, and the backups are ready to go in case we need them in the worst case scenario. Hopefully no one will ever need those, but they're always good to have on hand. Now, this next one is critical for those of us who run DR and utilize it. The reason is because you need to pause the DR before going to upgrade. If there's any problems with the pausing DR or any of that workflow, please open up a TAC case and we'll get that resolved. Please don't upgrade until we have gone through that. And obviously, some basics when it comes to upgrading any software in enterprise environment. Please review the release notes, look through the upgrade guides and things of that nature in preparation for your upgrade. Now, so looking at the next slide, we have one last item on it. Oh, sorry. So now here we're going into just some of the known issues that customers have run into in 2377. So as a part of the upgrade process, some of the pods will restart and containers will have to be reloaded. And during that time, MongoDB, in very rare circumstances, can end up in a state where there's no elected leader, and now you end up in a crash loop. So what you do to check that is after the upgrade, or it's either paused out or failed, you can go in and run magctl appstack status pipecret mongo. This is a command that can be run in the restricted shell. And what you'll see is one of the containers will either be in crash loop back off, or you'll have several of them that will be 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 containers on the pods. If you see this or you believe that you may be running this, please immediately open a attack case and we'll get on that and get you guys back up and running. The next one is with the certificate refresh and in our proactive approach in the upgrades to prevent certificates from refreshing immediately after and triggering all kinds of problems, we will, as part of the upgrade, we will refresh it. Now, we've caught that sometimes that if it's within 100 days, there is a situation where the upgrade will fail. So in order to kind of preemptively check that for this specific release, we have two commands at the bottom and two files at the bottom that you can find if you run a sudo RCA. So what you do is run the sudo RCA, let that complete, go get some coffee, come back. It does take some time. Just open it up and find these two files and view inside of them. Inside, you will see some times where it says not before and not after. In the not by after date, make sure that that is not within 100 days of the day you've chosen to upgrade. So let's just say if I wanted to upgrade 10 days from now, I need to make sure that the not by end date is over 110 days. If it is within 100, try to refresh the certificates, or if you're uncomfortable with it, just open up a attack case. We'll take a look at that and we'll get you worked out and ready to go. Next page. So here we'll talk about some software upgrades for the actual end devices themselves. So here we have a lot of times we run into issues where someone can't push the certificate on and says, hey, your deployment failed, software is not, we can't transfer software. Please make sure that SCP or HTTPS is available for that device, meaning we can route to it for HTTPS transfers as well as the device itself is accepting it. So an example is, hey, HTTP client source and VLAN, so it is ready and it can accept those connections. So sometimes we have some deprecated commands and then those will fail for software activation state. Now the last one is a little more vague. So, hey, we couldn't complete the upgrade and we've listed several reasons and some of the items you can kind of take to go through and review that. Now, most often is when you run into a situation where the switch is either in unready state or you have remnant files. And the worst case scenario is you've put 40 upgrades concurrently, which is our maximum, but the transfer speed is insufficient. So what you have is you have some switches ready, some switches not ready, and then the entire process will be considered failed. So sometimes you can have where you'll have conflicting software versions. For example, hey, I've selected all my switches to upgrade. Some of these switches can't take the particular code you're trying to go to or trying to push out, and it will not take it, and then they'll kick it back out for whatever reason it failed our internal checks for that particular code. Now, when marking golden images, this is kind of tricky sometimes. So we've kind of put it on here. Hey, if the global version is lower than the site, you're gonna need to review that. And then, but for now, you guys gonna need to take a look at that. We will be looking to resolve that. An additional item on here is also that if you are using specialized software, for example, like APSP or some sort of auxiliary software, in addition to the actual images main version, you will need to go in and mark those independently. So for example, if I'm running 17.94a, but I want APSP4, I'll need to mark 2 golden images, not just one. The APSP will need to be marked in addition to the 17.94a. Obviously, CCO credentials may be valid, or we can't pull that software. And please also make sure to accept all EULAs and any sort of end user acceptance agreements. Those will also prevent you from being able to download the software as well. So from time to time, we get asked questions on, hey, how do I know what Catalyst Center is pushing? Was it pushing it? And how do I kind of review those? So we're going to kind of take a little bit of time to go over that. So 2 ways that you can tell that is a lot easier than others, and rather than going through, is you can load an EM script and have it send it to syslog, and then have it in the review from your syslog server what commands were pushed during that time. Now, the only caveat is that you're going to have to kind of put this kind of script on those devices. An easier one is a little more, is just going in, increasing your logging buffer history and kind of reviewing what has been pushed. And then from the actual Catalyst Center side, you can do a config drift feature, and you can also do a config preview. And then from there, you can review, okay, hey, what commands are pushed, what commands will I push, and they should be complete on as to what we will be doing and what we expect to happen. So for those of you that run the 9800s and Catalyst Center for assurance, you probably have run into an issue where the system, where the wireless LAN controller will be in a continuous sync state, where it'll be perpetually resyncing over and over and over. And now all of a sudden you notice my APs aren't showing up in inventory. Why don't I get assurance data? My client's count cannot be correct. So to kind of talk about that as to why those happen and some of the things that we've kind of seen and looked at. So two main reasons that we had is when there are config changes, and the other is AP join and disconnects. So when an AP disconnects and joins, we go in and we kind of do a general assessment on the system itself to make sure that there's nothing else that we need to know about. Now, config changes, obviously, we need to go through and pull the config, pull the states. Now, so the reason why we need for config changes is because sometimes we go in and they do things like CMX, DNA spaces, where there are some actual changes that we need to learn about. So we've seen instances where a CMX was partially deployed into the 9800, and it kept pushing configs every 5 minutes in hopes that it could sync itself up and get itself into a functional ready state. When it does that, the act of performing the configuration issues a trap, and that trap, when it makes a DNA center, we trigger an event inside of ourselves to go, hey, a configuration change was done. We need to assess the controller again. And what it'll do is it'll put it into the queue for a resync. And unfortunately, in this scenario, it was happening every 5 minutes. And so the controller sync took longer than the trap was being hit. So we were just kind of queuing up, and it ended with a perpetual resync. The two fastest ways you can figure this out is obviously run an EEM script on it to see who is pushing a config, or you can run a config drift to see what kind of configurations are being pushed. Now, the last one is a little more challenging to kind of troubleshoot because this is AP join and disjoin. As of today, we've made a lot of hardening changes where if a couple of APs come on or off, we won't resync the entire system. We'll just resync just what we need and then kind of come back later. But if a large portion of the APs, so to say, for example, you have 5 sites, one site goes down, that's going to be a significant portion of your access points. And then what we'll do is we'll do a full resync when those APs come back or when those APs drop. Now, that can cause a little bit of delay, but by that time you already realize you have bigger problems and you're probably not chasing why a controller is resyncing. To kind of better allow you to troubleshoot that, you can go to the monitor assurance, the issues and events page on assurance, and you can kind of see, hey, these APs have gone down, how many times they've gone down, if they're back up, or you can go to the WC 360 page for the WC that should be servicing it and checking it out from there. Now, that could pose a problem if you're running N+1, things of that nature, but it's just another place that we can go to. Now I'm going to have to turn this back over to Salil for support extensions and things that we can integrate in.
Before you
Yes,
move
sir.
forward off that, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Dan. You first. Go ahead.
Sorry, Al. Yeah, we have a question here related to your section, Kevin. Is there any plan to allow users to select a golden image based on iOS XE version versus needing to select per device family?
So you just saying, hey, all my iOS XE devices, for example, Catalyst, regardless of all, whether it's 92, 93, 94, 95, I want this version versus each individual one, like a 9407, 9410, or is it all 9400s? How is that question pertaining?
Yeah, I don't want to assume for the user, but I think it's around, they just want to be able, yeah, he's saying correct. So,
Yeah, I would say that's what I would interpret
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna have to look into that. To my knowledge, there is not a feature where you can say, hey, all my iOS 60 devices, go to this version. But let me take a look at that and we'll come back and probably answer that question either in some other fashion.
So question on this,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
slide that, yeah, the question on the slide we're looking at right here. What is, so things that like in the continuous sync, I think you went into a number of different things you can look at. Is there anything that can be done to resolve this? Is this just, open up a attack case at that point? Is there something we can do to kind of, break the loop or whatever? Is there, what's kind of the, what should somebody do if they see this indication of the continuous sync like that?
So that's kind of a tricky question because usually there's an underlying cause that needs to be investigated, and this is more of a symptom, not necessarily something that you want to brute force fix. On obviously, if you're running some of the more deprecated code, there may not be something that you can do about it due to some of the hardenings that we've implemented. But if there is something going on in your network and it's just, hey, we know that one of the links are bad and it just kind of happens periodically, and we don't want it to interfere. We're working on it, but it's a long-term fix. You can contact TAC, and there are certain things that we can do to suppress the amount of resyncs that are happening. But as a general rule, I would say you would probably want to find why the controllers are on continuous resync as opposed to just hard suppressing it. But there are ways that we can do that if something like that is required.
Okay.
Yeah. For example, like if you have APs rebooting, find out for what reasons they're rebooting, right? Maybe you have
Right.
some bad connection. Maybe you have moved to a recent code where the APs are crashing continuously, like every few hours. If let's say you have a 4,000 AP network on a controller, maybe you are crashing like 10 or 15 or 20. Maybe they're crashing when school starts or during your business hours. So all of that, you need to get to the bottom of it. But the Catalyst Center will tell you that it is thinking because of an AP event or configuration change. What we're giving you is for you to find out for what reasons the configuration change, Catalyst Center thinks that is causing it, or why an AP event, what it caused, right? You may be refreshing APs,
Right.
and it is normal to have it. So take those into consideration.
Okay, gotcha. So really find root cause, solve root cause, maybe outside of Catalyst Center, and then the continuous syncing potentially would go away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if it's taking a long time to either resolve or it's something that can't be immediately fixed, there are ways that we can suppress it so that way you can kind of go about your day while kind of working on whatever's going on.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, we should probably have 5 minutes. I think we can probably go through these 2 additional slides, or maybe 4 additional slides, and then we should be wrapping up the call. So Cisco support extension, I think this is pretty useful that we are finding for people who can use to connect through cloud and they can transfer files, especially if you want to open up a Cisco support case from your browser, just download this extension. If you want to, let's say, a lot of times on the Catalyst Center, what's important is that, hey, if you can record the session, what you observe, it's a lot easier for us at the engineering or even at TAC to kind of translate what a user actually is going through versus you actually getting onto a WebEx for like an hour or 2 hours explaining it to TAC, right? Same thing if it's like a web UI problem that you're seeing, collecting the hard logs, it just automates through this extension. And if you need to upload files to a case, this extension, actually, you don't have to like download an RCA and then upload it to a TAC case and then alert the TAC engineer. As soon as you use this workflow, the TAC engineer gets notification that there's new attachment added and from where it is coming, so they can start processing. So a lot of manual work I felt we can improve here. Obviously, it's not restricted only for the support bundles. We've also extended to these other workflows as well, where we are asking customers to collect the logs. Won't go in details, but as you go through these pages, validation tool, like for instance, we talked about it. If there's an upgrade issue, and you ran through this validation tool, but you need to let TAC know what you ended up, you can just attach that document directly to the TAC case. So they have that information right away. Same thing, screen recording and hard logs, we just talked about it. And last slide is the escalation process. Like a lot of times we get, at least in the Catalyst Center, hey, we are planning to upgrade over the weekend, and then you anticipate no issues, but then you want to say, hey, what do I do if I do run into a problem? Or you're trying to, let's say, add a device to your network, and for some reason you're unable to add a device to a network. And it's critical for you to get that done, let's say in the next hour or two, because you have installers waiting for you, or you have certain time windows where the upgrades need to complete. I would look at keeping those severities to severity 1 or 2, ideally probably 2, unless you're really hard down. I would say probably go to severity 1. But if you did open, let's say, a severity 3 and you felt you needed to bump it up to 1 and 2, you can certainly do it. And obviously, as TAC is reaching out to customers, the priorities are severity 1 will be the top priority, severity 2 is second, and then the third and the fourth, right? Obviously, when you mark some things as severity 1, you or your employees or your partner is committing to work with Cisco 24/7, right? So you just can't mark something as severity 1 and hang up and say, call me in 2 hours or 3 hours. They will probably bump it down to severity 2 or a severity 3. Similarly, if you feel that, hey, my TAC case is not moving as how I anticipate, you can always use these 4 or 5 or 6 options to kind of escalate. We would probably recommend using the Cisco Support Assistant. It gives you nice options, automated fashion updates for people to look at. But if you need other ways to look at, like Cisco SC or an AM, you could make a phone call or maybe a WebEx space, but it's probably going to be a longer route to reach them. But those are other options for you to look at. I think that's about it, what we had for today. And we do want to bring in more content. Please give us your suggestions, ideas in the Slidos, what you would like to see based on what we kind of presented today. But thank you again for taking some time. I appreciate listening to us.
So I'm going to hold my question till next time. We talked about this just a little bit ahead of time on what do you recommend as far as bringing a wireless LAN controller into Catalyst Center with fabric, without fabric, all that sort of stuff. So stay tuned for the next episode because we will ask that question, but I'm not going to ask it this time. We'll get into the next level of detail with this. So that was great.
That's great. Yeah. Thanks for the reminders too. It's always a great reminder to our viewers, our customers, that they set the priority of their TAC cases and they can escalate things and that sort of thing. And of course, we're always here if they need help too. But so that's great. I also learned this week too that I need to, I can relate now to sports announcers when there's rain delays and stuff like that. I need to either sharpen up or prepare some material, or we need to have reruns ready to, just to pop in some reruns there in case we
get your joke book out.
All kidding aside, thank you everyone for hanging with us. And this was hopefully a great topic, something that we've heard a lot of people asking for. I'm glad, Salil, Kevin, you could take the time to be here, and we're looking forward to part 2. Thank you very much for that, for your time.
Thanks, guys.
And I don't see any other. Wait, I do see. Hold on, I do see one other question. Thank you. Okay, some feedback there. We would like to hear more on the Meraki cloud side of things too. I agree. We will continue to do that as well. We've done many episodes on that. And I'm looking at the YouTube chat here. Yep. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. So just closing. if you do need to get a hold of us or would like to get a hold of us, again, you can always get a hold of your Cisco account team. You can email us at getunplugged@cisco.com. You can hit us via direct message on X Twitter at unplugged80211 or on threads at unplugged connectivity. So I think that's it. And again, go out there. If you're not subscribed to the channel, youtube.com/@getunplugged. Turn on notifications so you are notified when we do go live. It will be part 2, 2 weeks from now. So hope to see you on there, and fingers crossed for no audio challenges or issues. Thank you very much, Tom, for getting us back on the rails there. Appreciate all your behind the scenes work as well. So until next time, stay connected and unplugged. Thanks, everyone.